The following podcast is a presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Welcome to Staring Into the Abyss. I'm your host, Richard Gerlach. With me, as always, is Michael Patrick Hicks.
Hello.
And Matt Brandenburg.
What up, creeps?
Yeah. And today, we'll be talking about Yellow Teeth by Adam Nevill. Which
a dirty story.
I subjugated these two with. If you do want to read Yellow Teeth, it is located in his short story collection, Some Will Sleep. It's a really good collection. Adam Neville's, I think, one of the best horror writers working right now, and he's definitely someone we should be supporting.
Yeah.
Because he's giving us something classic with a fresh coat of paint on it, and it is gruesome. He's one of the few authors to actually, scare me.
Yeah, he can do that.
That is a feat. Mike hasn't even done that yet. He just grossed me out.
That's all I can do. Well, it's like that Stephen King thing, right? I'll try to scare you, but if I can't do that, I'll just gross you out. I'm not ashamed of that.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, no, it totally does work. What is it, that Twitter thread that was happening that's going to be long forgotten by the time this episode goes live?
More than likely.
Where some guy commented on Sci-Fi and Scary's body horror post.
Oh, yeah.
And he was just like, what did he say? He was like, you shouldn't be going for gross out horror because that stuff's easily forgotten. You should be trying to write gore-free horror like Edgar Allan Poe because that stuff's still being read to this day.
Yeah.
Man, talk about pulling out a deep reference.
Yeah.
Nobody's written horror since Poe.
Yeah, I know, right?
Now, I am quite good writing that kind of shit. I like reading it. I like writing it. I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah, man.
Oh, I enjoy all ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So, give me something gross and fun. Give me something gothic-y and serious. I'll take it for what it's worth.
Where would Twitter be without mediocre white guys explaining to women what horror is?
That is true. And where would Twitter be without people complaining about fan fiction? Because that's the new thing going on right now.
Oh, Lordy.
Just burn it to the ground.
Yeah. I would say, why don't we talk about something fun? This morning, I actually finished a comic book.
Oh.
Jonathan Lee's. The same guy who did Sync.
Oh.
And it's called Mountainhead. Have you heard of this one, Mike?
Never heard of it. Or Sync. I don't know what either of these things are.
You've never read? I thought you read Sync.
I don't know what that is.
That's the Scottish, the Scottish-British, horror crime comic.
Nope.
Didn't we talk about that, Mike?
Maybe. I don't
feel
know.
like we did talk about it, but
maybe talk about it. I thought
maybe
Mike
we
read
did.
it.
No, I don't think I have.
Well, Mike's gotta unfuck that.
I'm not going to remember this by the time we're done recording.
That is true.
So when you listen to this, future Mike,
because I listen to this shit over again.
Future Mike, buy Sync.
I listen.
I got better things to do than listen to this thing.
So, Sync is really good. I highly recommend it. The Mountainhead is his new one. So the art is fucking fantastic. And it takes place in a Canadian town. And at the start of the story, our main character is a boy named Abraham, who we later find out that's not even his real name.
Abraham!
And he has been stolen from his parents by a man who's been training him to, like, break into houses and sell stuff and to live life off the grid and always be on the run and paranoid. And one night they get arrested by the police and he gets reunited with his birth parents. And it turns out his real name's James, and he's from a Canadian town which has a giant mountain in the back of the town. And people who go mad, people who go in the mountain and lose sight of like humanity and end up going mad. And there's a disease for it someone calls the Mountainhead.
Nice.
And as the story continues, the people in the town begin like going insane and transforming, and there's like eldritch beings deep in the mountain that's causing all these fucked up shit to happen in the town. And it is gory as fuck, and it is a wild ride.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. That one I might remember, and I will look that up.
We'll see.
I highly recommend this one. It is, if you want a gory, goopy, creepy as fuck horror comic, like, it's one of the best ones I've read in a while.
All right, cool.
That does sound pretty sweet.
And it is apparently from IDW.
It is from IDW.
Huh.
And it's got tentacles and lots of body horror and lots of gore and some really solid character development, too.
And congratulations to IDW for publishing something that isn't a media tie-in work.
Zing!
That's a bread and butter.
It's pretty true, though.
So, yeah, that's my big thing for this week, reading-wise. But, Matt, what about you? Or, Mike, what about you? Let's get Matt
what?
Now.
We can do Matt. If Matt wants to go ahead, he can do that. I don't care.
All right,
let's switch it up. Matt, what about you?
Okay, I read 2 novellas this week, and the first one was Andrew J. Stone's All Hail the House Gods. I don't know.
I have heard a lot of good things about this one.
It's good. I mean, I like it.
Or not.
It's good.
I mean, I liked it. It was fun. It's like, I don't know. Like, at the end, I wasn't quite sure. I feel like the ending kind of let us down a little bit. The basic concept is this is some post-apocalyptic world in which the apocalypse came when all the houses decided to eat people. And so it was called the House War. And then this little community decided, they basically struck up a truce with the house gods in which they would feed the house gods every day. And so the way to do that was this whole community is solely based on having sex and having children. And then those children are put into a lottery, and then every day a new child is drawn and sent across this bridge. The whole society is built on that. There's this like procreation center where they keep all these kids and they teach them how to procreate at a very, very, very early age. And then if a girl gets pregnant, then that couple can now move into a tent, and then they are basically forced to have children, at least one a year. Well, definitely one a year. And then they give up their child after 1 month, and then this child is taught basically how to have sex, and that crossing the bridge to feed the house gods are good. And what happens is we're following a couple, and after one of their children get pulled in the lottery and sent to the house gods, the wife decides, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So we're going to start a revolution against the house gods. And at the same time, the husband, they're all brainwashed. The husband is at first kind of against it, but then meets somebody who says, no, there's not all bad house gods. There are good house gods. And so he's on his own mission to find these good house gods and get them to help, while the wife is coming up with all these grand plans on stopping this lottery, this sacrifice from happening. And she goes everything from bombs to arrows that you can light on fire to shoot at houses, and to stop having sex so that you cannot make any more children, so that the children can no longer be sent to the house. And so it's a little wild and crazy. I mean, these are literally houses that are alive, and they feed on children. And so, you already kind of got a bizarre stuff. I actually got this. I can't remember which publisher did it, but during Christmas, there was a Bizarro Bazaar online, which you could order from all these different authors, and then they would sign the book. So I got this one and a couple other ones from it. It's a lot of fun. It's very strange. The ending, like I said, I wish it would have went somewhere else than it did, and it kind of sort of spoiled the rest of the story as a whole. But that's just me. Other people could love the ending.
Sounds like they could have just called Bob the Builder and saved a lot of time.
Yeah. Can we build it?
Yes, we can.
Well, the crazy concept is, and this might be a slight spoiler, is they do find good house gods, and the good house gods are like, well, we're going to make even bigger house, and if we make an even bigger house, it will attack the evil houses, and it will be good. So sort of like a Bob the Builder, they're taking parts from their own houses to make these giant houses. It's very weird. There's like this whole house orgy scene with furniture.
Hold on, wait. The house itself is having an orgy?
Yeah, like all these good house gods are together in this field, and I guess the way they have orgies is they shoot furniture out of one mouth into like one doorway of a house into another doorway of a house, and then that house spreads it to another one, and it's kind of this circle. So I guess that's how houses have orgies.
Hey, baby, come see my love seat.
I mean, pretty much.
I recline all the way.
Yeah.
Want to see what we can do with this spatula, baby?
Oh, God. It's so tiny.
Want to go and bang some knocks together?
God.
Just twist my doorknob. Oh, yeah.
Make sure you push that button and engage that lock.
Just slide this lock home.
So, yeah, that book.
I put it on my wish list. It sounds pretty wild. So
yeah.
It is.
I mean, that's definitely a bizarro book from the sounds of it. That's not your straightforward horror story. That's definitely in bizarro category.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, 100%. There's no question on why these houses came to life. There's no it's just they did, and we're dealing with it. And the best way to deal with it is to make babies so we can feed the children to the houses.
So you've got these houses that are having sex.
Yeah.
What happens when they come?
I mean, I'm guessing it's the furniture shooting out of their mouths. I don't know.
It's like the stuffing of a couch explode or something. I mean,
it shoots out of their chimney.
Yeah.
That part wasn't discussed. So
that is a
missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity. Yeah.
That could be maybe a sequel.
Yeah.
So how do they tell the difference? Like, what's the male house and the female house? Is there gender at all?
No, there's no gender.
Okay.
Just houses.
Just houses.
Yeah.
All right. What's the other novella you read, Matt?
I read Mage of the Hellmouth, John Wayne.
Oh, I picked that up, but I haven't got to it yet.
And this is actually, I guess we can get into the discussion because I also watched WandaVision, and I'll tell you how I'm tying these two together. So Mage of the Hellmouth was a lot of fun. It is basically a guy working at an ice cream factory, and the ice cream factory has like a main office, and he gets sent to the main office, and then he starts noticing all these weird things. All the people there, there's like nobody, he never really sees anybody at this giant factory except his boss and this other lady. And there's this red thread that's through everything. The two are wearing red bracelets, and there's red paint all over the building. Anyway, it ties into the story. And so he is trying to figure out what's happening. His best friend goes missing, and then he starts seeing really crazy things, such as a woman with a dog head, people smiling very strangely, burnt out husks, and all this just strange stuff is happening. And then he slowly starts tying it to this role-playing game he used to play called Mage of the Hellmouth. And then it kind of goes into some weird territory of like this mage that's trying to get hell and all this stuff. it's really fun. It's a great book. I definitely recommend checking it out. It's pretty light and a little weird, but this will tie into WandaVision, which I think we all watched. And
yes, really quick, do the houses scissor?
Well, see, they're giant. They're houses, so all they can really do is like have face each other and open a door, and furniture goes from one house to another house through the door. They have like crab legs, or like they don't really explain what the legs are. They said they're crab-like, but I kept imagining like like in cartoons when they grow legs, and they're kind of like just noodle legs. I kept imagining that. So
do the houses move?
Yeah, they walk around.
So they can move.
Yeah.
I have a question about the houses.
Yes.
Does someone like to take it in the back door?
I'm assuming so. That wasn't fully discussed.
I'm stuck on the mechanics of all of this. I really need more resolution on this topic.
When you see a mommy house and a daddy house love each other very much, they go into this open field.
Yeah.
They get in a circle with other houses that they love very much, and then they shoot furniture into each other's mouths.
But, like, that's it?
I mean, that's all that we got in the book.
And there's got to be more to this.
I mean, the houses don't, like, birth new houses. So there's just, unless they take parts from each other, like, they take a roof off of them and they put it on a new thing.
They just exchange furniture? This is their owner's furniture, right? I mean, this is...
I'm assuming the houses have this furniture, so... But, actually, what's interesting is that's what the good house gods eat furniture. So either they're vomiting up into each other's mouths and then passing it around. But the way it's described in the book is this orgiastic something or other. It's that, like, some fancy word basically for orgy, and that's what's happening.
Are there any reach arounds?
I mean, there could be.
Oh.
But your arms would have to be really long because you're a house.
Do they practice safe sex?
I mean, I don't. They could put garbage bags in front of the door.
Yeah, I mean, do they like bubble wrap the furniture before they shoot it in the other door?
Do they put like the plastic lining on the couches like at grandma's house?
No, these were raw dog furniture. I mean, think about it. I guess the worst that you could spread would be like bed bugs,
termites.
But I mean, they're houses, so I don't know. I mean, yeah, termites, but maybe they shun those houses and they push them off a cliff.
So what if like the inhabitant of the house was a hoarder? How does that work?
I mean, there's probably a lot of vomiting involved in there. Maybe that's why the house gods revolted. They didn't really say why the house gods revolted. They just did, and they started eating people. So, I mean, these are all very fair questions.
I think I'm going to need like an illustrated guide to this book.
I think we're going to contact the author and be like, you need to draw this out for us.
A prequel would be good because we don't really know what the war was. It was generations ago. They just been doing this forever.
Is there like a house Kama Sutra that we could refer to?
There could be. I mean, that could be like a supplemental guide to this book.
Yeah, I mean, what would that be like porch sitting or something?
Yes. And you got to think about it, they're all different types of houses, so the way they must all lock together would be really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious. I don't know.
Yeah.
You got to read the book.
I guess so.
Maybe it'll give you some answers.
Well, I have questions. That's for damn sure.
Now, we don't get a ton of the house god sex action. We see mostly the other stuff.
Oh, so there's not like any X-rated.
No, it's left to your imagination. So, I mean, as dirty as you are, I think you could come up with some good ideas.
I got some ideas. I'm thinking. I'm trying to riddle this out.
I am too.
They don't have eyes or anything. I mean, just windows. So I don't know. I mean, who knows what the mechanics are of it all.
Are the houses brick-sided or vinyl-sided?
They're all kinds. I mean, we get every type of house.
Because I'm thinking, if they get rough, that's going to knock off masonry, and you got brickwork that's going to get fucked up.
So I have a question.
Maybe that's why they're shooting furniture. Yes.
If there's houses of like all kinds, right? Does that mean some of them are racist and only prefer vinyl houses?
There could be. There very, very well could be. I mean, but maybe it's not just even like brick versus vinyl. It could be just
some see that the brick as inferior.
I mean, there's like it sounded almost like a minivan house, like there were like there was log cabin houses. So, I mean, any house you can imagine, anywhere where a person I think lived at one point, would be a house. Maybe not an apartment, but a house. So,
also, it's got like a pretty stretchy definition of what would constitute a house. It's more of a domicile.
So like we don't see. I mean, like we see tents. The humans live in tents, but the tents aren't alive. It's just the houses. So, but like I said, you see a cabin house. You see like some weird like Frank Lloyd Wright house things and stuff like that.
Frank Lloyd Wright house. I mean, you could fuck with that.
I mean, you could. There's a lot of squares.
Yeah, a lot of right angles there.
We
found a new section of Pornhub now.
I think so.
I mean, you could draw it. Somebody might like it.
So they don't get into like how kinky the houses are. He doesn't write about.
No, he does not. That
like art. The subdivision doing a Boston steamer. They don't go that far.
No, like I said, he could do. Trying to think of another person who's done this. I mean, what Orson Scott Card kind of did with Ender's Game and then Ender's Shadow. So
wait, those were about fucking houses?
No, follow along with me. So Ender's Game and Ender's Shadow is the same story told from two different points of view. He could do an all house gods and then Gods of House. I don't know. He could do like a sequel and it could be from the house's point of view. And there could be like a 30-page graphic house orgy scene.
That's the only way we're going to solve this mystery.
Yeah, I think that's needed. I think
maybe you could write the fanfic.
Then I'm going to have all these Twitter trolls after me for fanfic.
Oh, God. So, I can't. Fuck.
I can't win. I just cannot win.
I mean, no, you can't. But, like, if you hide it, you could do, like, what I think was it Gregory Maguire. He did all those things about other properties. You could do it like that. So, like, he did The Wicket instead of Wizard of Oz, so you could do it that way. Here's the story about poor houses that were watching humans have sex in their houses, and they're like, man, I really want to do that.
You're going to go like the Chuck Tingle route with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do that. You don't have to call it all the house gods. You could just sort of reference it, and then you can go on.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. This requires some thought.
I mean, this could be like the Lovecraft universe, but all house god universe.
Yeah.
Why don't we continue our discussion and mull this house sex over?
Yes. Anyway, WandaVision, Mage of the House God, Mage of the Hellmouth. So both of these
WandaVision was very wholesome.
Yeah, it was very wholesome.
But as you were saying previously, before the podcast, people were complaining about it. And I was wondering, because especially when you watch that first episode, if you had not seen the trailer and didn't know it was going to kind of jump between like sitcom tropes and decades, you would be very confused at what was happening. I mean, even at the very end, at this point, the show's been done when this comes out. The very, very end of it, you see that it's, okay, somebody's watching this TV show. But you wouldn't know if up until that point that what was happening if you didn't watch the trailer. Mage of the Hellmouth, the back cover tells you about this role-playing game in the little book blurb. You don't know about that RPG in the book until you get 3/4 of the way through. There's no hints at all about this. There's nothing like, oh, this sort of looks familiar, or I think I've done something like this before. And that's kind of part of the story, is that the main character has played this game and figured out this way. It's like the super challenging game, and he figured out a way to beat this one campaign in that. And the campaign's tied to the actual story. So my discussion or topic or question for both of you is things like this, where you if you hadn't seen the trailer or hadn't read the back of the book, and it's something completely different up until a certain point, is that good? Should we have gotten more hints, say in WandaVision, that something weird is happening earlier in the episode than we did?
I mean, it's weird from the get-go because, spoiler alert, Vision's dead.
Yeah, you've got a whole bunch of things like, I think something is very off immediately because, one, it's in full frame, not widescreen. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
It's 2021. And it's a modern show in full frame in black and white with the Scarlet Witch and Vision, who died in Infinity War, as a sitcom. Yeah. Already, this is not computing with what we know of the MCU as it has been today. The Marvel Cinematic Universe there has never been any indication that this is what it would lead to.
And there's also moments in the first episode where Wanda is about to have a realization about something, and then she's interrupted, and it goes back to sitcom tropes.
Yeah, or whoever interrupts her ends up getting hurt, and it is enough of a distraction for her to not think about whatever she was about to think about.
Yeah. And then there's also the dinner scene where it changes from a multi-camera setup to a single camera zoom. Yeah. That's switching cameras, and it changes the whole tone of what's happening in the scene.
Yeah. That part in particular, when the boss starts asking direct questions about where are you from, why are you here, when did you get married, all of that stuff that they don't have answers to. They are completely lost as to their own history of what they're doing in this setting, in this environment, why they're there, how they got there, and all of a sudden he starts choking on the food he's eating, and Wanda is getting very, very concerned about the background to these questions and why she doesn't have answers, and she might be starting to remember what happened over the last two Avengers films with the Infinity War and Endgame, and all that she's lost and does not want to think about. Because I think a lot of the people that are complaining they're not the comic book fans. They're not the people who have an understanding of these characters and some of the events in the comic book world that this television series is probably drawing on. In the comics, there was a big event called House of M, where, if I recall correctly, Wanda loses her entire family, and she goes psychotic, and says 3 magic words, which are no more mutants, and it wipes out all of the X-Men and rewrites Marvel history and turns it into this alternate universe, which I think is what we're getting here to some degree.
I think in this, Wanda's in a prison of her own making.
Yeah.
Where she can live out this fantasy that she has in her mind. But
I think this is a manifestation of her grief over losing Vision.
Yeah. But also there's some weird things happening. So
there's a few weird things.
Mike's the Marvel guy here too. Did you notice the sword logo when the camera zoomed out?
Yeah, multiple times.
So
the sword logo, they're not subtle with it. It appears
Sword's watching.
Yeah.
And that's going to be huge.
Yeah, Sword
especially
is a subdivision of S.H.I.E.L.D., which no longer exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So this is probably a new organization that, in the comics, it's kind of like the space-based S.H.I.E.L.D., which, given the events of the MCU with Nick Fury and the Kree or the Skrull,
exist.
Yeah, I think it's probably a new organization that Nick Fury has set up while he's off in space fucking around with the Skrulls.
And also, in episode 2, a lot of people didn't catch this, but Geraldine, she's in Captain Marvel.
Yes.
A lot of people
the character, yeah.
Yeah, well, Geraldine's not her name, but the actress is in Captain Marvel.
Is it the same actress? I thought
it's the exact same actress.
Well, because she's playing. We looked it up in IMDb. She's playing her daughter. She's not playing. Yeah. She's not playing Captain Marvel's friend. So there's.
Yeah, she's playing his daughter.
Because Captain Marvel was set in the 90s. So we're looking at 30 years later.
So yeah, she's the daughter, but still, it's the idea that this person is still there. So that means there's something odd happening there.
Yeah.
Plus, the end of episode 2 with the bee guy had the sword logo on his uniform as well.
Oh, I see. I missed that. I mean, I saw it on the helicopter, but I didn't see it on his uniform.
So
I mean, there's a lot of weird shit going down. This is kind of like a Marvel version of The Truman Show.
Yeah.
And those other television series like Nowhere Man or The Prisoner, where you kind of got this guy in captivity who's in this odd society that he doesn't know why he's there or why he's thrust into this conspiracy. Like in Nowhere Man, which was in the 90s, it was a show that I fucking loved. So, of course, it only lasted for one season. But in this show, it's about a photographer named Thomas Vale who takes a picture of the military executing a group of civilians in Latin America. And he has this big art show, and he puts that print on display along with all of his other more artistic and journalism photos that he's done. And to celebrate, he and his wife go to a restaurant, have a fancy dinner. He gets up and goes to the bathroom. By the time he comes out of the bathroom and goes back to sit down at his table, his wife has no idea who he is. And they end up like having to call security and toss him out of the restaurant. Like his entire life has disappeared. He no longer has access to his bank account or anything. His friends deny knowing him. And when he tries to question one of his friends about what's happening, the friend ends up dead. So he's put on the run from this whole giant conspiracy that's unfolding. He has no idea what's going on, and this thing reaches very, 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 very far, to the point like they have fictional towns that broadcast a brainwashing signal. So like it gets really trippy and into some really fucked up things. And I think WandaVision is kind of drawing on a similar premise where I'm guessing Wanda is in some stage of grief because of Vision, but because the MCU doesn't have those decades of history that the Marvel comics do, obviously there's going to be some kind of twist. So I don't know, maybe she went into some kind of undercover operation and is now being brainwashed by Hydra, and SWORD is trying to extract her.
Either way, I'm very intrigued.
I am
all
too.
These little Easter eggs.
Yeah,
but
I
will
we're only
say
2 episodes in right now. But
the comedy has been a really solid sitcom comedy, and I see a lot of people saying how it's cheesy, but I'm like, sitcoms are cheesy, but when they're done well, they're still funny.
Yeah. It captures very well that whole aesthetic of Bewitched and I Love Lucy and oh god, what the hell was that? The Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yeah.
I mean, that is very much in keeping with those sitcoms.
I never thought I would want to see Vision sing Yakety Yak, but I'm happy I got to see it.
That was amazing.
It's fun. It's really fucking quirky, that show, but it's fun.
But I think it's cool that they're doing something like this.
Yeah, and I think by the time the show hits the midway point or 3/4 of the way, it's going to be a much more familiar MCU story than where it's beginning. People are just impatient. You know, it's like, it's what, 8 or 9 episodes. They want everything answered in minute 1 of episode 1.
Where's the mystery?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess so. Where I was trying to figure out is, besides some of that, I think what I'm trying to figure out is when you have something like this, or say Mage of the Hellmouth, where there's like a big reveal switch, big change. I'm not saying that the change is huge in Mage of the Hellmouth, but it's an important piece of the puzzle. And like, it just, if you hadn't read the back of the blurb, you would have no idea that was coming. And you would like, because there's no, I guess with WandaVision, like you said, there are some subtle hints if you start paying attention to it. But like in this one, there was no even mention of this guy playing role-playing games or any being into that kind of thing. And then just to throw it in there could have thrown you off if you hadn't read the back of the book. And I'm just wondering, again, like for WandaVision, where if you weren't paying attention, because some of that stuff, I like, especially like in that first episode where, like, I mean, you can catch some of the obvious. They talk about Stark, and then yeah, the end scene, or even the dinner scene, especially with the mom from that 70s show kept saying "stop it." I thought that was like, oh, interesting. Besides those things, because those are glaring things, and maybe that's what they needed. And maybe that's what we needed in Mage of the Hellmouth, is something where maybe it's not so obvious, but at least some sort of reference to like, oh, looking around his apartment, we see a collection of games or something like that. And I'm just trying to think of other stories, books, movies, whatever, where there's like a big switch, but like if it wasn't kind of set up, does it seem alarming? And like, do we need the setup, or could you just go to something like this? I think like, Wayward Pines. I don't know if you guys watched that.
No, but I did read the books. Those were great.
So the first season was really good, and they obviously, I mean, if you read the books, and this is a show that's been out for a while, so the spoilers gone, but like, I think about 3/4 of the way through, they reveal what actually is happening in that village, in that town, that there's something, that there's monsters, and that there's this underground tunnel and this thing. And then I think by the end, you realize they're way in the future. But at the beginning of the first 4 or 5 episodes, you get subtle hints. Terrence Howard plays a sheriff, and he plays it such a weird way that something is going on. And so I think that sort of works. Now, I haven't read the book, so I don't know if it works better or if he gives more hints that maybe they're in the future.
No.
Okay.
No, it comes as a real big surprise. Like, you get these intonations that, again, like, there's this weird town, that there's some kind of conspiracy. So again, it's in kind of that The Prisoner mold, or Nowhere Man kind of vibe, where this guy wakes up in the hospital and he doesn't know what the hell's going on and ends up being on the run. It's been a long time since I've read it, but I think he ends up somehow becoming sheriff, or...
Well, yeah.
Maybe that isn't until later in the series, but...
Yeah, and I think in the series...
He's not allowed to leave the town, and when he tries, he ends up landing up back in town. Like, no matter what direction he tries to leave from, it's like a big loop that just constantly leads... The only road that exists leads to the town.
Yeah. And I think in the show, Terrence Howard snaps or something happens, and then that's how they get... I think it's Matt Dillon. They get him. I think he becomes a sheriff or something like that. But yeah. So, I mean, like, I guess the question is, does that work? Do we want some sort of hint? Like, I don't want it obvious. Like, again, for Wayward Pines, I didn't want them at the beginning, the first episode, or even the first 4 episodes, to have like a flying car somewhere. But, be like, oh, we're in the future.
I personally like being lost alongside with the character and going on that journey of discovery.
Yeah.
As long as it's executed well, you've got me.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
If it's really poorly done, then nothing is going to save it if it's obvious or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I think sorry, I know you keep trying to talk, but I just keep thinking.
Sit down, Rich.
Like, Cabin in the Woods, I think, is a good example, because right from the very beginning, we know that there's, because we see Bradley Whitford and then what's his name, and we see them in some place, and so we know something's up, and then we even see like them like have like those almost like SWAT team watching the teens go to this cabin, and then you see the thing cover the land that they go in, and the bird crashes into it. So like that worked. You don't know what's happening, but something is even bigger happening, and so that's like sometimes I wonder if was that I like that. I think that's a good way to go.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they're well executed, you can go either way. It's just a matter of how well it's going to be done. If it's something that, if you're just pulling this solely as a gimmick, and it's obviously done in a gimmicky way, then you're never becoming more than just a gimmick.
Yes.
If you're doing this so that it's a legitimate mystery, Or you can kind of shade it in like Cabin of the Woods. It's like, okay, you get the idea that there's something weird going on here, but you don't really know quite what exactly or why. Those blanks get filled in later, and that's fine. I think that's a great way to do it. And the same with The Matrix.
Yes.
Like, you're kind of lost for a little while. You don't quite know what the hell's going on. But look at The Wire, okay, where it's like you're introduced to all of these characters. You're given all of this information up front. But it's so disparate and disconnected that you don't know what to make of it. And it takes 4 or 5 episodes for it to actually all come together and make sense. And you realize, oh, that's who they were talking about, or this is what's going on.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think execution. And that's not to say Mage of the Hellmouth didn't execute it well. It did. It's great. I just reading it and then and then watching WandaVision just kind of made me think of things like that, where you're kind of like, okay, there's a big tie-in, something that's showing us that there's something else going on, and like this was like somewhat of a big plot point, and like it kind of almost felt like it came out of nowhere. So it's just wondering, like, does that work? Do we want that kind of like, as long as it's executed well, and we know there's a mystery, and then this big piece gets thrown in, is that good, or should we expect that piece be coming?
I don't know. I think it depends on how much do you trust the creator.
Yeah.
Like WandaVision, I trust the MCU implicitly. I expect them to know what they're doing at this point in the game. I've been a fan of their movies for a decade plus,
right?
And without any Marvel content for an entire year because of COVID, it's like, I'm ready. If you put WandaVision, I'm going to watch it because this is some fresh Marvel content for me, and I love what they do.
Yeah.
And to have it be something so different and so unexpected from what they've done previously, I'm good with that. And again, I trust them to do whatever they're going to do with it.
Right.
Blake Crouch, the Wayward Pines trilogy was one of the first things I ever read from him. And when he pulled the wool over my eyes in book 1, it was like, okay, I got to go read book 2 for sure. And then I plowed through those, and you get other books that he's done like Recursion and Dark Matter. It's like, all right, I am now a Blake Crouch fan for life. This dude knows how to execute high concept ideas in digestible ways that are going to surprise the shit out of me no matter what he does. So it's like, I'm going to keep buying his book. I trust him.
All right.
They're well written. They're fun.
You may speak.
They're intelligent. Shut up, Rich. I'm not done yet.
I'm still going. There was an essay I've been writing I wanted to talk about, but it's okay.
You go ahead.
No, it's been like 10 minutes since I tried to mention it. So
no. Go on. We'll see.
I gotta regather my thoughts.
Our supposed host.
I'm trying to regather my thoughts now. Okay, so going way back to the beginning of this conversation, because it was more relevant then than it is now. We've already talked about like things that are past what I'm going to talk about, so I need to contextualize it.
Okay.
So there was the argument in the beginning of if shows like WandaVision or stories like WandaVision, if it needs to be hinted at, or it can just, the twist can just happen, and kind of like the pros or cons of how these can go.
Yeah. And
I was going to use an example of a manga that I had been talking about. Oh my God, I'm talking about manga again. And there's a manga called Chainsaw Man, which I've shown you guys pictures of. And the first like 81 chapters of this manga is just like your typical action fighting manga. That's like, there's nothing really special about it besides how zany and silly and fun it is, with some horror overtones. And then all of a sudden, the character who you thought was a good person turns out to be the ultimate villain and ends up killing all the main characters besides our main one just to break his spirit down. And it completely changes the way you see everything in the story from chapter 1 leading up to what happens in chapter 81. And they left no clues this would happen. There was no hints that this would happen. And the way they did it was just a huge, like, mind-blown, like, event that led me wanting to plug this story and have everyone read it. Because I thought, like, the way they're able to do that without any hints. Like, there's no hints, there's no nothing. And then it just happens, and then it still makes sense. And I'm just like, it literally is just really top quality writing.
Now, would your opinion change if you had read something that mentioned that, or it'd say again in WandaVision? Okay.
Because if the hints were there, then as a reader, that moment would have had less effect on me, especially with this being a visual medium over like a book. Because like if you think of like comics, you're thinking of a different type of visual medium, and there's subtle hints here and there, but there's no hints that like this character is a bad person. But there's hints that something bad is going to happen. And then when the bad thing happens, it's like a huge like Jackie Chan mind blown gif. It's like,
yeah, and that's kind of what I'm
saying. That is because like we've already kind of moved past that part of the conversation. That's why I was like, this doesn't really connect as well as it did once it would have if I was able to mention it earlier.
No, but it's a fair point because that's what I was wondering specifically, say, with WandaVision, is because if you'd seen the trailer, you knew that all this was coming, or at least what's going to come. You know that she's going to be jumping decades and TV styles, and you knew that people were going to be kind of acting a little weird.
If you read the description on Disney Plus, it says that too.
Does it? Oh, I didn't even read that. Oh, then maybe then never mind. All that it sets it up. Because that's what I was just wondering. I'm like, if you would watch this fresh, because like even when we were watching it yesterday, watching that first episode, I was like, man, they are playing it really close to the chest. And all you're really like, if you didn't know any better, you'd have been like, oh, this is like a weird thing that they're doing. And they're not telling us anything. They're just showing us this really weird 50s style TV show. You know, it could have fit in with, especially if you had Disney Plus, you know that they have all those like weird Marvel Legos and Marvel like mini cartoons and stuff like that. They don't really play into the broader universe. They're just kind of these goofy things. And so like if you had been watching those and then you watch this, you're like, oh, right, this is just another goofy thing that they just threw together. So like that, and that's kind of just good or bad. It could work. I mean, obviously we know it works and it doesn't work depending on how you do it. Just wondering if those kinds of things, does it need more of a hint early on, or can you like let the reveal just happen? You know, I mean, like they did it more in the second episode. They introduced color, they introduced the radio, and you can hear, totally drawing a blank on his name right now, but you can hear what's his name that was in Ant-Man. And
Paul Rudd?
No, yeah, no. What's his name from Fresh Off the Boat, and he was in Ant-Man as the FBI guy.
Ronald's.
Oh, is that who that is?
Randall Park.
Randall Park.
Oh,
yes.
I thought it was Paul Rudd. I was hoping maybe Ant-Man was going to show up in this show.
No, and I'm and I know it's him because I watched the trailer and he shows up in the trailer.
Kat Dennings is in this too.
Yeah. Yes, I saw her in the trailer.
Who's Jane Foster's intern in the first Thor movie?
Yeah. So anyway, like, so the second episode, they definitely kind of give you more like, okay, something bigger's happening. This isn't just some goofy rip on TV. So like I said, good, bad, indifferent, just didn't know what works. What would people prefer? And I think it just depends on your tastes.
I think it also depends on the writing getting you involved and invested in the characters in the show and what's happening.
Yeah.
Because regardless of if they hint at there being a twist or there's no hints at there being a twist, if you're not invested in the characters, you're not willing to go along for the ride. And if you're not willing to go along for the ride, the twist is either going to be meaningless or feel cheap because you weren't invested to begin with.
Exactly. It always makes me think, and this is somewhat of an older reference, but of the first Portal, because you're just playing that game, and then about like 3/4 of the way through, you realize that there's something bad. Something really bad's happening. And I love the way they did that. And that's exactly what you said. You're invested in this like weird puzzle game until you get to this little room and you realize that, the cake is a lie.
The cake is a lie.
and then it opens up into a broader world. So I always think like they did that. And I guess that's one too, where you didn't get a hint until that scene. Anyway, thanks for the discussion, guys.
You're welcome.
So, Mike, what did you recommend for this last week? And then we'll dive into the story, because it's a big boy.
Oh, well, I started reading Visterion, issue
Yay.
1, volume 1. I was hoping to finish it over the weekend, but my oldest, he lost his very first tooth, so he got some Legos from the Tooth Fairy.
Nice.
And I have been working my fingers literally bloody building these goddamn Lego sets all weekend. He got me up at 5 a.m. today to build more Legos for him.
Awesome.
So I did not finish Visterion. I don't remember as a child Legos being this complex, but
I would say they're less complex now than when we were children.
You think so?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, wow. Maybe it's just, being an old fat-fingered man now.
Yeah, I
as...
can relate to that pain.
I don't have the kind of dexterity that I used to have building Legos as a child. I don't remember them being this small and complex and so multi-layered. Like, it's a Lego shark, one of them, and this thing is like 150 pieces. Like, how is this 150 fucking pieces? And they're like all little tiny little miniature. You need like a fucking magnifying glass to find half these things.
Oh man,
welcome
I still
to the
build
Legos.
So that's what I did. I tried to read a book, and then I found out the author is a whack job, COVID conspiracy flake. So I quit that book and moved on to Visterion and was not able to finish it. And,
well, keep on reading Visterion. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it is. And I just got an arc of the Twisted Anatomy anthology we mentioned at the beginning from the Sci-Fi and Scary crew. Nice. So I'm looking forward to gross out stories and body horror and all that yucky, icky, gross stuff that proper women folk should not be writing, according to white men on the internet.
So update on that crazy whack job author. He has privated his Twitter.
Yes, He has. And the publisher has pulled his title from their schedule.
Yes, they have. And so one last thing is I am still reading The 13th Coyote. It is really, really good. And I've also started Cruel Summer by Wes Southard,
nice.
Which is way better than the last book I read from Wes Southard, and I'm loving this one a whole lot more.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I really like the cover for this one.
It's really fucking good.
And it sounds like it's some sea-based horror, maybe, which...
Well, yes. And it doesn't take place
look forward to
completely in the ocean.
Okay.
But it deals with the ocean and sea gods and anger.
Okay.
Ooh.
The cover reminds me, do you guys remember the Fluke Man episode of The X-Files?
Yes.
Season 2? I saw that cover and I'm like, all right, Fluke Man, I'm on board.
The book follows a single mother named Melissa who is doing her best to take care of her son Patrick. And Melissa's boyfriend, Hoyt, is an extremely toxic person.
Hoyt.
And there's no like warming you up to being like, oh, Hoyt's seems like a decent guy until he explodes. Like right away, Hoyt's like, these fucking beaners driving their cars can't fucking drive their cars right.
Jeez.
And then he starts calling the son PB. Oh, no. And the kid's initials is Patrick and Patrick Braun, but he's referring to him PB as Pussy Boy.
Oh.
And
those guys, great.
And
so you're just waiting for the sea monster to eat him at this point.
Yeah, it's like page 3 is like, wow, this guy's a really horrible fucking person.
Yeah.
And something happens that involves him falling into the ocean and his rage awakens this ancient sea god that possesses him and gives him a second chance at life to expel his anger towards those he's angry at. While Melissa and her son are trying to like get out of where they are and get into a better life.
That sounds like no bueno.
Yeah. Actually, I think I remember reading about this and being like, I don't know, man, this sounds intense.
Yeah.
It's really intense. It's really fucking good. Like I'm really liking this book a lot.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to that one. I got that one too.
Why don't we go from a sea-based horror to shit-based horror with Yellow Teeth by Adam Nevill.
Oh, man. This story. I mean, like, right from what I noticed as I was reading it was that I think you had said this at the beginning, Rich, about this being like, it's a classic type of horror story. I mean, it's definitely got a modern twist, but it's just this, like, good comfort classic horror, which I really liked.
It's a classic bit of home invasion kind of.
Yeah. You got a guy who just won't leave. And like
poops everywhere.
Who poops everywhere. I do like the beginning where he's like, but if you kick me out, where do I go?
Yeah.
I don't fucking care where you go. But where will I go?
Yeah. Don't you see, you're the wrong one here, mate. If you kick me out.
Yeah. He's like, that doesn't make sense.
So we'll do a quick brief on this story, which is about a fairly middle-class business guy. Owns this.
He's like a middle-class business guy. He has a one-bedroom flat. And
this college mate named Ewan, who he hasn't seen in more than 10 years, just randomly shows up on his doorstep and moves in.
And the only thing he remembers from Ewan from college is that he dropped it after a year of college.
Yeah, he was only there for like one semester.
Yeah, one semester. And he had yellow prehistoric-like teeth.
And now he not only has yellow prehistoric teeth, he hasn't bathed or changed his clothes in years, and he reeks to high heaven. He smells. He's a slob.
Yes.
Like, he does not pick up. He's a hoarder. So
he takes zero responsibility.
He has taken over the guy's recliner and living room and made that like his personal throne, surrounded by trash and dirty dishes and
shit.
Yeah, just all kinds of filth.
And our protagonist is just trying to get him out of his apartment so he can live happily again.
Yeah, this is a really initially a simple story, but Ewan has some things going on that add a few extra wrinkles and complexities to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ewan does lots of strange things in the apartment when our narrator isn't there. Ewan will play music that sounds like cats screaming recording backwards.
Very loud at 3 a.m.
Yeah, very loud at 3 a.m. He will just turn the TV on to just, what was it, like static, and that's it.
It was like cartoons. Yeah,
it's like, he'll be like cartoons and just turn the contrast all the way up and brightness all the way up.
He has the heat on and the windows shut.
He's
middle of the summer. He's got the heat blasting because he gets very cold.
Yeah.
Which
and
can
it's
only
just
make the smell that much better.
Yeah. He's got psoriasis on his feet and funky toenails that he leaves his little flakes of dead skin everywhere.
Even just a description of him, like he had his back of his head is flat, and so it lines right up with his neck. He's got this long, scraggly hair, a low brow, and then Adam Nevill, just out of all this grossness, just like makes this weird mouth on this guy, and these yellow teeth, and these like obscene red lips, and like it's just, and he's got these long gangly arms and everything. He's just this like Neanderthal gross man. Oh my god. And so you're dealing basically throughout most of it, you're kind of dealing with the frustration of how do you get this guy out of the house. he gets belligerent a number of times, and like Rich was saying, like he has this weird childlike argument where he's like, where will I go? This doesn't make sense. I can't leave. You can't send me out. He's like, that doesn't work. And all this
You're
stuff.
being mean.
Yeah. Just like arguing with a child. And
it's like, what is it? When he leaves shit in the apartment and the guy and the narrator tries to throw them away and he's like, don't leave. He's like, don't touch them. And the narrator's like, it's rubbish, but I need them. Why? They're not finished with, but it's rubbish. The papers were weeks old.
And I think that's like the first where we see this guy like get angry. Most of the time, the descriptions at the beginning are he's just this like mopey, everyone hates him, the world's against him, he has no place to go, and he's crying. We get that like scene where he's got these long fingers covering his face as he's blubbering. But then, yeah, when the protagonist tries to get rid of the garbage, that's when he gets right up in his face and he's like, don't touch this.
Yeah, the whole time that Neville spends describing Ewan, the only thing that I could think of, you guys remember that old Gilda Radner sketch on SNL about Rosanna Anadana?
Yes.
No.
Where she's reading, it's supposed to be kind of like, I can't even remember, like the newspaper columnist that does like those advice columns.
Oh, like a Dear Abby or whatever.
Yeah, like a Dear Abby, and the guy sends in a letter to her about like he's got toe fungus and he can't stop smoking and he sweats constantly and he's got acne and all these other problems. And she's like, wow, you sound like a real attractive guy.
So, yeah.
So that's what I kept thinking of with Ewan. It's just like...
You know what's funny is that with no sense of smell, it's hard to relate, but even not knowing what these things actually smell like, it still was gross. The way Adam described them, it still just sounded disgusting.
That's right, because you do not have a sense of smell, for listeners who may not be aware of that.
I thought you didn't have a sense of smell, Matt.
Yes, it makes some things difficult. But the descriptions here were apt enough where I was like, okay, I can imagine what week-old meat in a hot room would probably smell like. So... Yeah.
And then our narrator, does he have a name? I don't even remember at this point, but he has been living with this guy now for so many weeks. Like the smell has imprinted itself on him. So he goes to work and gets sent home because he stinks so badly. Like he doesn't even realize it because he's been living with this for so long. He's become accustomed to the smell. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if he was used to it, but he just didn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. And then it turns out his girlfriend noticed like 2 weeks ago that he stunk really bad and was just too polite, because one of the themes in this book is just they're very British kindness. You know, it's like
lots of manners.
Yeah, they are very British and don't want to be rude, which got on my nerves at one point because I'm just, why the fuck doesn't this guy just call the police? Just man up and get him the fuck out of your house. Like, but why is this?
Where will he go?
Who cares? Not here. That's the point.
Even like
it's like if this story was set in America, this would have been done in like 2 pages. It's like, oh, you want to leave my house? Bam, I'm going to shoot you, motherfucker.
Right.
Well, in British, it's like, oh, dear Lord, I don't know. Should I call the police? Oh, heavens to Betsy, I don't think I can. Oh, if I call the police, then where will he go? Oh, my goodness, this is such a quandary. Oh, what a pickle. Oh, I am in such a pickle.
Well, also what ties into that is Elwyn has something.
He does. Yeah. He has a lot of things
that he gives to our narrator called The Gospels According to the Goddess. And this is a document he spent the last 10 years working on.
Yeah. It's only 40 pages.
It's only 40 pages, and it's pretty much him trying to write down how to either contact or summon or pay tribute to this goddess, who we don't know what their power is, but if this guy's sticking to high heaven and acting like a super creep, I'm pretty sure it's not good.
The way it reads at first, it's like it's what like a cult leader sounds like. Everything is basically describing why he's doing these things and how these things are going to make him better, and that's why he stinks, and that's why he's given up like talking to anybody, or everyone that's mean to him, they're mean to him because they know that he's touched by the goddess. And it's so like, and they even make a reference, I think the narrator talks about the fact that this sounds like Charles Manson, and it sounds like all these cult leaders just making an excuse for the way they are, and like, oh well, God said this is the way to be.
But like near the end where it's like 42, and his flesh will be made stronger with her incense.
Yeah.
43. Indeed, the king in rags, her servant and most dear love, will be robed in divinity that escapes the eyes of men, but will leave their other senses in awe of him. 44. And he shall leave his flesh unclean for the passing of 8 seasons. Drink strong drink and eat rich foods in readiness for passing into her kingdom. 45. He may choose companions to follow him and follow her through him till they too be granted passage. 46. For lo, look up, believers, and she will be revealed to you in all her magnificence and glory and beauty, and ye shall be nourished and anointed by her incense also.
So it's just all insane.
Yeah. I wonder how Neville came up to this, because I kind of imagine him like sitting around in his flat watching old television, and then The Odd Couple comes on. He's like, oi! All right, cunts, I got it.
Oh my god!
It's gonna be The Odd Couple.
It's gonna be bloody brilliant.
One of them's gonna be a fucking demon, all right?
Mike, I didn't know you were from England.
And he's gonna have big baboon pussy lips, is what he's gonna have.
With big Neanderthal teeth.
God.
And he's gonna just reek to sod in heaven.
It's gonna be bloody brilliant.
And you don't like it? Fuck off, you bloody wanker.
My guess is he had a roommate at one point that he didn't like, and this was his response to him.
I know maybe there's that, but I think The Odd Couple played a role. I think he wanted to do a very British, very horrific Odd Couple.
I also
he thought, okay, how can I take Felix Unger and make him more depraved and more awful?
I also like how the girlfriend is like, listen, you can't go back to that flat. Like,
yeah,
just don't.
Yeah, you've got to kind of give up everything you have because.
But something keeps drawing him back to the flat, even though he's trying to just move on.
Yeah.
Part of it because it was something that was his, but other part of it is because, like, he is drawn to it for some reason beyond himself as well.
Well, and that's kind of, you get, like, again, if this is tie back to our earlier conversation, you get a little bit of hints that and just from reading that passage, I mean, that's what it seemed like Ewan was trying to do this whole time, was to get our narrator to follow him to this goddess. Because even that childish conversation, there's a couple other ones like that where he's like, well, no, you're not ready yet. You need to stay here and everything. And so that's kind of where part of probably why he's kept going back was that, and his stuff. I mean, he kept talking about all of his stuff. He was like, he's going to ruin my books.
All his death metal albums.
Yes, it's not Adam Nevill story without death metal, and it is in here. Was it Necrophile Autopsy?
Yeah.
But, and then talking about the politeness, it's crazy because he's playing this music extremely loud at 3 a.m., dancing and stomping, and even the neighbors don't call the police. They just decide to move.
They move out. They just leave in the middle of the day.
Like,
well, it's really upsetting the kittens, so we have to get them out. It's like, fuck the cats. Call the cops.
Yes. So that was my mindset through this whole thing, too, was like, how come nobody's calling the cops and asking what is going on? There's a dead body. It has to be a dead body in his house because it smells so bad.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand why no one would just call the cops and get this over with. Like, why just keep going through? Why keep putting up with this? Why go through it? And That did bother me. That was kind of my one big complaint with this story, is that the narrator is just so spineless. It's just
well, and that goes to his dream. He has a dream in which he's
that's right. Yeah,
where he's boneless like worm.
Yeah, he's completely emasculated and turned into a eunuch by Ewan and leashed so that he's both enslaved and being led around like a pet.
And
Ewan dominates and controls him.
Yes, in the ultimate gross dream, he's like getting covered by Ewan's dandruff, and there's toenails all over the floor.
Oh yeah, he's got to crawl through the sea of toenails like broken glass.
He's got a bowl of shit that Ewan keeps like sticking his fingers into to draw figures on the wall.
Oh God, yeah.
It's a pretty disgusting dream.
But it's like this guy is a victim, but he's also completely complicit in his victimizing or his victimhood.
Yeah.
He's letting himself be led around by this guy. He's allowing his life to be taken over. And part of it for me was that this story was a bit too long with that theme running through it. It was kind of like, this didn't really need to be as long as it is. It did feel repetitive after a certain I just kind of wanted.
I have a question.
Sure.
How moist do you expect Ewan to be?
Pretty sweaty, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, whenever he touches him, he talks about him being sticky. So
there's a lot of. I picture him as being a very greasy guy, you know.
Yeah.
Very gross. And I get back, Mike, to what you were saying. Even when when the narrator kind of sort of moves out and moves in with his girlfriend, and his girl, he's like, well, we're not going back there. And he even mentioned you. He said that you shouldn't be in that apartment. That's not fair for you. And then she's like, all right, well, that's it. I'm going to talk to him. And he just, the narrator at first is like, no, we shouldn't, but follows her all the way there and lets her go into the living room first. And it's just like, dude.
Yeah. Let your girlfriend fix everything for you.
And they can smell the flat from like outside the door.
Like going up the hallway. Like I think they're on like the second or third floor. So like as soon as they come into the ground level lobby, it's like the smell is right there.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for whoever owns this building because this is why I will never rent out property. Okay. If I ever inherit a house, I will not be renting it to anybody because this is why.
Yeah.
My parents used to rent out property, and this is the shit we would have to deal with whenever somebody moved out. It's like, no, I'm not putting myself through this. And I don't understand why this narrator puts himself through it.
We also, when his girlfriend goes into the apartment, she sees something.
Yeah.
Yes, she does.
I love that scene because even as they're walking up to the apartment on the street, they see these bright lights coming out of the window. And then there's no power going up the steps. And then, they go in. She goes into the living room, and we don't see what happens. But we hear noise.
Describes it.
Yeah. I'm assuming the goddess was there and was going to take him, but then she interrupted it because Ewan looks pissed, but nothing happens.
This nasty woman who showers and is clean interrupted this ceremony of filth.
Yeah. Oh, man. And
if this is how bad Ewan has to become in order to meet his goddess, what kind of trash monster is he worshiping?
Oh, yeah. It's a good question. I don't know. But he'll be clean. That was the whole point of the Bible verses.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. She's got to be like a walking landfill.
God.
The goddess will clean him.
Yeah, she fucking better. Somebody's got to. This guy needs to be run through a car wash.
Yeah.
As the story continues, he eventually goes back to the flats.
Yes.
And
because again, it's Britain, it's England, and so it's like this huge process of talking to barristers, and since Ewan technically had a key, they couldn't just kick him out, and so it's like this huge thing where they're trying to get Ewan and I don't know to pay or something, and And so, but then he finally goes, and yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah. It's like,
And
what the fuck kind of squatter laws do they have in England that?
renters' rights.
Yeah.
You could just stay there forever.
I guess so.
I do love the way like he describes like the last paragraph in the story where he sees Ewan's teeth on the ground.
Yes.
No more Ewan or Ewan. Is it Ewan or Ewan?
I think it's
Ewan?
Ewan. Like Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, that's what I would thought.
Ewan, maybe. I don't know. It's British.
Well, like, he was right. Apparently, he was right because his skin was like glued up to the ceiling, and so something did come and pull him up.
A wet spot that like he left behind.
Yeah, it was a very Junji Ito kind of scene.
Yes.
Smack.
It's like, I like the last paragraph where it's like, on the floor, directly beneath a large circular blemish on the ceiling, once colored a shade of porcelain satin, I spotted Ewan's teeth. Ewan's teeth.
Like the UN.
With dark matter still attached at the roots. They were no longer grinning at me, but were now scattered amongst the litter, like seashells broken from a leather thong.
Ugh. Just like, yeah, I mean, it's such a gross story.
It's really fucking gross.
Yeah, it is long. It reminded me a bit of reading a lot of like Books of Blood, because all those stories are longer. They're not, I mean, they're short stories, but they're long, short stories. And that's what this was a long story.
Yeah, I do think it could have been pared down a little bit. Like, we get that Ewan stinks. We get that the apartment is a trash fest. We get that this guy just completely sucks and invades his space. But we kind of get beat over the head with it, in my feeling anyway. Yeah, I could have gone with, if this were 5 or 10 pages shorter, if it was a little bit tighter and less droning on about how bad Ewan is, it would have been a little bit more effective.
Yeah, because we get a number of scenes of the narrator trying to get Ewan out, or the nighttime stuff.
And it takes a while for that reveal to come in about the goddess. I think if that had been a little bit more, if they would have cut out some of that middle stuff to bring the goddess information into the halfway mark instead of, I want to say, like 3/4 mark.
Yeah,
so you didn't like all the smells and the shit.
I got it. I got why that was there, but it just seemed a little bit. It seemed a little excessive. I'm not sure that we needed all of that information.
Yeah,
and then I don't think we needed it 2 and 3 and 4 more times after that.
Yeah, like I do think we get one reference to the goddess a little bit earlier, where Ewan talks about he had gone out and had seen her in the trees, but then the narrator kind of skips past it. But yeah, like unless we had maybe a little bit more of a story arc for the narrator, at the end we do get a bit more about him, like talking about, well, this is what happens when we're modern, like a modern day male, or even modern day society. We don't have to deal with stuff like this, and when it's thrust upon us, we don't know how to act, and our ancestors did. So like maybe we needed more of that.
I'll tell you what, I mean, I don't know when this was originally published, but reading this in middle of January after 4 years of Trump, and seeing these idiots on Twitter with their COVID conspiracy theories and don't get the vaccine because they're going to chip you. Like, Bill Gates is that fucking interested in what you're doing.
Get that Bill Gates microchip, baby.
But on page 97, as he's going through his apartment, or he's about to go into the apartment, he is thinking to himself that this is how civilization ends.
Yeah.
A little part.
Standards decline, accountability ends, the rule of law is impotent. The thugs take over and do what they will, and those of us softened by convention, courtesy, and all the privileges of post-historical freedom are dispossessed, victimized, and turned into refugees in our own neighborhoods and homes. It was the first time in my life I'd ever really felt tested, and I'd proven myself incapable of meeting the challenge. But in my defense, there was no preparation in life for characters like Ewan or the strange things they worshipped. And it's like reading that after
Yes.
all of the shit we've been dealing with in America for the last, just looking at Trumpism for the last 4 years, but looking at the state of American politics for the last few decades, it's like, yeah, that paragraph stood out to me in particular. Yeah. And the cult of MAGA and a character like Trump and the strange things they worship.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm sensing a metaphor.
Right.
So
it's like, okay, we gave everything over to this overbearing asshole who smells funny, and he is just going to trash every fucking thing we own.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, because even at the end when he is going through, once Ewan is gone, we're going through. Ewan had smashed every record and CD, had soiled the bed, just threw shit everywhere, and like all childish because I'm assuming because the narrator wasn't there.
Yeah.
Well, if you're curious, Yellow Teeth originally appeared in British Invasion, edited by Christopher Golden, Tim Levin, and James Moore.
Oh, wow.
In 2008.
Wow.
Oh, okay. Well, he was a little bit prescient. This is pre-Trump.
So he was very predictive in the story.
Yeah.
It's a little scary.
But you know what? I bet Trump smells just like Ewan.
God, yeah.
I am like 1,000% sure of that. I honestly believe that Trump smells funny. I think he has to. I think he smells funny, and I bet. Okay, we are recording January 17th. The inauguration is in just a couple days' time. I bet when the Bidens move into the White House, Trump will have shit in the hallways and in the Oval Office.
It wouldn't surprise me.
And left that behind. I bet right now Trump is peeing on all the walls, just like Ewan did.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to pee on the walls and shit on the floor and smear it all over the walls. This is what... Trump is Ewan. There is no denying this.
Oh my God.
This is his author's notes for this story. He said,
"You have author notes for it?"
Yeah, it's in the collection.
Is it? Where? Because mine just went right into the next story.
Yeah.
If you hit the top and do search or go to, and it divides it into different sections. So like,
okay,
the LT thing.
Yeah, at the very end of the book.
Both these horrors at the very end.
All right.
And he says here, let me get back to it real quick.
So all these people who complain like the story shouldn't be political, even when they predate our current day politics, they're still political because Trump will always smell funny and be a piece of shit. And that is captured in Ewan, even though author Adam Nevill did not try to be, presumably did not try to be political. I don't know. Maybe he was writing about Thatcher with this.
Maybe. He says here, a first draft of Yellow Teeth was written sometime in 2004.
Wow.
But was revised and extended a few years later after Tim Levin, James A. Moore, and Christopher Golden invited me to write a story for a collection they were compiling, British Invasion, that Cemetery Dance were publishing. Writing this story mirrored a difficult period in my existence in London, stretching from 1999 until about 2005, in which my living arrangements and my personal standards were often severely compromised by having very little money and working at night. This forced me to live in some shoddy places and to cohabit with, quite frankly, people with the most appalling habits, who may even have been suffering from personality disorders. That whole period was a maelstrom of sleep deprivation, poverty, despair, conflict with others within small living spaces, and grave anxieties about my future. The story was a reflection of my being inspired while down. You always have writing to turn to. But my experiences in my first years in London really manifested in the novel Apartment 16. And then he talks a little bit about Apartment 16.
So there you have it. Adam Nevill lived with the Trumps for a while.
Oh, he said
he lived with people who had personality disorders and were very unclean. It was he lived with the Trumps for 6 years.
Nice.
I would not wish that on my worst enemy. I feel bad for Adam Nevill.
He decided to leave Yellow Teeth as a long short story and to revisit the ideas and characters sometime in the future, and he does revisit them with his novel Under a Watchful Eye.
Oh, wow.
We have to hunt that down.
Yeah, that we know that he lived with the Trumps. And he had his living standards compromised.
Fuck you, Donald.
Fuck you, Donnie.
Fuck you, Eric and Don Jr. and Ivanka. Fuck all of you. And good fucking riddance.
So what do you guys think overall of this story? I know this is our second Adam Nevill story we've discussed together.
Yeah.
Overall, I liked it, but I still have kind of the same complaint that I did with the reddening, particularly that segment, that very overlong segment in the reddening where the woman was trapped in her bedroom.
Yes.
And the other woman was trapped at sea. And it's overly decompressed and too extended for my liking, where it feels overly long and repetitive. And that's ultimately how I felt about this story, although I did enjoy it. I did ultimately like it, but I do wish it hadn't been extended quite as much as it apparently was.
Yeah.
And I see in his notes also Adam Nevill was writing one erotica novel each year. And I want to know what those were, because I'm now finding myself curious how extended those are.
I will say,
one's about houses.
I've read
houses fucking. To be specific.
I've read 3 Adam Nevill books. Of the 3 I've read, I'd say No One Gets It Alive is probably the scariest.
Okay.
That's one of the few books that actually scared me. The reddening didn't scare me, but the reddening was a fucking thrill ride that I couldn't put down.
Yeah. It had some... It wasn't a scary book, but it did have some nice tension in it. It had some good... It had some nice little freaky moments.
Had some really good tension. Like, No One Gets It Alive is about a woman who is super poor and can't afford, like, living in flats.
Yeah.
And she finds a shoddy room to rent just to, like, live there for a month and try to better her life and get somewhere else. And every night when the lights go off, she hears strange noises happening from the rooms around her. And she sees ghosts in her room that when she turns the light on, the ghosts go away. And her landlord is a creepy motherfucker.
Of course.
The only spoiler I'll give, and there's a lot more to this book than that, is the landlord and his cousin are importing women from Eastern Europe to run a brothel. Jeez. And they're trying to break our main character down to turn her into a prostitute as well.
Give me the name again. What's this called?
It's called No One Gets Out Alive.
Okay. Did you read Under a Watchful Eye? He says he revisits these characters.
He revisits characters and I guess the theme in that one. I haven't read that one yet, but I'll get to that one soon. But No One Gets Out Alive. There's a scene that involves a vial of acid that like really got under my skin.
Oh boy.
And there's another scene where our character in that book gets locked in pitch blackness. That was one of the scariest things that I ever had to read. So just going to put that out there. Neville knows how to really write descriptions and scenery that gets under your skin.
Yes.
Matt, what did you think of Yellow Teeth?
I liked it. I agree. It's a little long. Like we said, I read The Reddening, and then I also read The Ritual, and both of those also, I think, maybe could have been trimmed down just a hair.
He's very...
Yeah. I'm looking at No One Gets Out Alive right now. This fucking thing is 641 pages.
Damn. Oh, it's Kindle pages, yeah.
So that's a big one.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matt.
no, it's all right. And like I know that a lot of that is spent on descriptions, and they're very detailed descriptions, but at the same time, it does kind of stop the story after a bit because nothing super new gets added to it. We just hear like, okay, he's gross and he's doing gross things, and every morning the narrator wakes up and finds more gross things. So like we get that after a while, and we don't need to keep seeing that. I think the story itself, like I said, is like a good felt like a very classic horror story of this thing that just keeps getting eviler and worse. And it is very frustrating, like Mike said, I think, which is good. I like that it made us frustrated, because at least it's effective that way. So I appreciate that. And yeah, I am interested. Actually, I think I would Under a Watchful Eye or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I would be interested in reading that just to see what else he kind of does with it, because there is a bigger story here. So I'd be intrigued.
I want to know more about this goddess.
Yeah, exactly. I want to know more about that, and like how Ewan found this goddess, and like you do get a lot of hints of stuff like because the narrator doesn't always go in the living room where Ewan kind of sets up shop. So you only get the sound of what's happening, or you only get to see lights happening. So something crazy's going on, but we don't know what it is. And that's even the same for when the girlfriend goes in and sees it. She sort of describes what's happening, but she doesn't describe everything other than this like drop of mercury kind of thing falling on him. So yeah, I like that. Was very effective, and definitely shows you how a good way to do a story without showing us like showing us through other senses, which I think is good. So yeah, I liked it, but it was too long.
You've read The Ritual, right, Matt?
Yes.
Have you seen the movie?
Yes.
Which one do you think did the twist better?
Personally, I think the movie did it better.
You don't like the black metal guys living in the woods with their little goat?
No, because after that like felt so. I mean, I liked kind of where it was going with that, and there's still that terror of like you're dealing with these like psycho people who are believing in a certain thing, but at the same time, it was such like a change and so absurd that it was hard to take some of it seriously. Where at least in the movie version, you kind of have this weird like folk horror kind of religion thing happening, and I was like, okay, I can buy that more than some black metal people thinking that they're going to call up some evil spirit and stuff. I was just like, what is happening?
He didn't do it in the reddening, but of the three Adam Nevill books I read, which was just The Ritual and No One Gets It Alive, I think I might read Last Days soon. But both of like No One Gets It Alive and The Ritual, like halfway through, it just kind of like has a complete tone shift.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, I think it's kind of cool that he does that, but I can understand it like creating whiplash in a lot of readers.
Yeah. Which, look at that goes back to what I was talking about earlier. It's like I knew what I was doing.
Now let's not get too out of touch with reality.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I wasn't planning that, but it's very true where, especially with The Ritual, you have no idea that there's a black metal group involved in all of this. And then it just smacks you in the face, takes a left turn, and you're like, oh, all right, we're dealing with this cheesy rock metal band thing.
So Under a Watchful Eye does sound like it takes a fairly similar premise as Yellow Teeth, but kind of changes things up a little bit, involving a writer named Seb Logan who is being watched, but he doesn't know by whom. And it sounds like that's Ewan. So maybe we do find out more about the goddess and whatever this religion is. But it sounds like it's another one of those idyllic home life kind of thing that becomes invaded somehow.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll buy that on the next paycheck once I have spending money again.
Yeah. And I mean, that one's almost $9 on Kindle.
That's not too bad.
No.
Yeah, I will say, like, also, Adam Nevill front, No One Gets It Alive is being made into a movie.
Is that the next Netflix one?
Yeah, that's the next Netflix Neville movie is No One Gets It Alive.
Oh, nice.
That's what led me to read that, because I'm like, oh, they're making a movie out of it. I'd like to read this and see what they change, if they change it, what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay, so I think we do find out more about the goddess. I'm reading a bit more on the synopsis for Under a Watchful Eye, and Imprisoned by despair, Seb fears his stalker is not working alone, but is rather involved in a wider conspiracy that threatens everything. There are doors in this world that open into unknown places. Places used by the worst kind of people to achieve their own ends. He risks becoming another fatality in a long line of victims.
Nice.
Yeah, I could be down for that.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
Ewan's in this one.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I see one of the reviews does mention Ewan. So Ewan is obviously the stalker.
It says, once Ewan approaches and establishes a foothold in Seb's home, there's no going back.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's definitely taking familiar themes from Yellow Teeth and that basic plot and expanding on it, as he said in his author notes. So this is definitely going into the cult of the goddess.
I am very
how it came about. Yeah, I'm curious too. Neville, one reviewer, Neville details his characters so well you can practically smell Ewan. No thanks, I'm good. I think I got enough of his smelly ass in this book.
Right. Oh man, I'm definitely intrigued now.
Yeah, me too. I mean, like, that's the one thing is he's a great writer. I think he likes to go for a long time.
Yeah. I feel it's very British of him though. Like,
yeah,
I love
Ramsey Campbell, stuff, but I think a little bit more restraint would make for a lot of improvement.
Yeah. Like if you look at Ramsey Campbell, right? Ramsey Campbell, he is very dense when you read his stuff too.
Yeah.
And like Clive Barker.
Yes.
Like, it seems like a very British thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it probably is. I am more of I appreciate the more straightforward, punchier prose that doesn't belabor the point too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the Reddening, where we spent 100 pages with this woman trying to get a box from under her bed. It's like, holy fuck. Does this
those chapters are pretty fucking tense.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been many of them.
Long. It wouldn't have been too long, but just because they were short and punchy, and that's what stretched it out. But because they're so short, it made you keep on going and going and going and going, which ramped the tension up a lot.
To a point, and then it just kind of got like, fuck, we're doing this again, are we? We're still doing this, huh?
Well, I'm glad we're 2 for 2 for Adam Nevill. He hasn't let us stray yet in this podcast.
And I guess Adam Nevill listens, so mate, I don't mean to make light of it or offend anything, but yeah, I like his stuff overall. I do have a few issues with the writing style, but I don't think it's enough to detract me, and I do want to read more from him. I like his ideas. I like his concepts. I'm curious to see what else he's got.
Exactly.
So yeah, we're 2 for 2.
Yeah, I agree.
I will say, I think you would enjoy No One Gets Out Alive a lot, Mike.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking into it. That one's going to have to be another payday. That one's
once you can afford it, I think you could enjoy. I think you'd enjoy that one a lot, though.
Yeah.
Especially the two cousins. You're going to love those characters.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, we'll see what happens. I know one of, I don't know if it's North Carolina. One of them or Connecticut. One of them is suing Amazon because of their ebook pricing and colluding with publishers. So we'll see maybe if that shakes out and we can get some sensible ebook pricing instead.
That could be nice, actually. Those ebook prices are fucking ridiculous sometimes.
I mean, you go on there, $15 for an ebook, or you can buy the brand new hardcover for $15. You know, why are the ebook and the hardcover the exact same price? This boggles my mind.
Or you could do what I did this morning and buy 2 Brian Smith ebooks for $1 a piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've definitely, if the prices are like pretty close together, I'll just buy the physical copy.
Usually me too.
I'll just wait for a sale on the ebook because I don't have enough space for another hardcover.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair point. I probably don't need as many books as I have, but
yeah. I mean, like ebook, okay, there's no storage fees. You're not having 1,000 ebooks sitting around in a fucking warehouse.
True.
Charging money. You don't have to print it. There's no cost beyond making the Mobi file and uploading it. Why is it $15?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than you don't want people to buy the ebook because print is what you think keeps you alive in 2021.
Yeah.
I can see that happening.
Well, this is how we always did this. Is the 1800s. Well, you know what? Fuck the 1800s. It's not the 1800s anymore.
It's the 2020s now, bitch.
Digital. Get with the times. Or like, also, one of my other little soapbox points.
Here we go.
Go, Mike.
Digital bundling. How is this not a common thing with major mainstream publishing? You get it? If you buy a fucking vinyl record, you get a code to download the digital equivalent. If you buy a fucking comic book, you get a code to download the digital equivalent. Yeah. If you buy a DVD or a Blu-ray, you get a fucking code to download the digital equivalent. Why the fuck can't we get that with mainstream publishing? Why can't I buy a hardcover and get the Kindle edition bundled with it?
I will say...
Other than pure fucking greed.
Well, or my guess.
No, that's the final answer.
Is that you would have to shrink wrap all the books.
Yeah.
Otherwise, somebody would just take the code.
Yeah.
So, and then their thought is people, when they go to a bookstore, want to flip through the book as opposed to reading just a back cover.
You know what? Fuck the flippers.
So, solution. Give the retailers a code so when you buy the book, the code prints on your receipt.
Yes,
that would be a sensible solution.
Code to download the ebook.
Yes, that was my.
Then, my God, we might require Barnes and Noble to buy modern computers with an operating system.
Yeah. No, that would have. I've always thought that specifically for like D&D books, because like we now have D&D Beyond, and that's an awesome app that has all the books on it. But if I say have a hardcover of the DM guide, I would like to also have it in D&D Beyond, but I can't because I have the hardcover. So now I'd have to go and buy the digital file of it. And I'm like, that's stupid. But if they had printed out, say, a code in the receipt, then I could just download it. But again, like Mike said, that would force companies to update their stuff from 1980 to 2010. And
we all know companies don't want to do that.
Yeah. You know what? We have so many answers. If people would just listen to us, we could have this world fixed up by the end of the decade.
Exactly.
And this is why people should listen to us.
We know what we're talking about, people. We have the answers.
We've got the things.
We can
bring about world peace.
We have solved all of the problems.
We can get you a book about houses having sex.
Digitally and in print.
and illustrated.
With illustrations.
So when the eventual house...
I got your knocker right here, baby.
We can get you a book about clowns fighting spiders.
Yes.
Knocking on that door. You better believe it.
Heck yeah. Damn it. Man, Jeff Strand's new book cover.
We're doing that book, Matt.
He's going to give us a copy.
I know. I think he likes to scare me. So
yeah. Well, who doesn't?
Who doesn't? Oh, jeez.
All right, guys. Where can our listeners...
This episode has become as long as an Adam Nevill story.
I'll tell you, this episode could have used a lot of trimming, like an Adam Nevill story.
So, everyone listening at home, be sure to subscribe, review, leave us all the good news on social media and all the streaming platforms so we can spread the abyss around and get into the algorithm. Yes. Matt, where can listeners get in touch with you?
I am on Twitter at BrandenburgDM.
And Mike?
They can find me on Twitter at MikeH5856.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Rudy53088. And be sure to follow our podcast at Into Staring to get caught up on all the good news. And this is Richard Gerlach saying keep staring.
And don't send me pictures of dolls.
This is Jim Adams from Monster Attack. Hey, if you remember that monster movie from your childhood that got it all started for you, the one that really got you interested in monster movies, horror movies, sci-fis, and cult films, then you're going to want to listen every week to Monster Attack. We look at some of our favorite monster movies from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. With new episodes uploaded every Monday, it's Monster Attack, exclusively on the Project Entertainment Network.
This has been a presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.